Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're getting to the home stretch on this 83 300D. Just have a few items left. Then I want to test drive it, check everything out. But today we're going to do the dimmer switch on the gauge cluster. Those are notorious for failing after, decades. So we'll do the dimmer switch, the shifter bushings, the battery tray. We'll inspect that and refinish it if we have to. And then I want to do a rear diff service. So let's go ahead and dive in to the dimmer switch replacement on the gauge cluster. We're also going to take a look at the clock, make sure the clock is working. Okay, you guys have seen me do this many times, but before you get the gauge cluster out, you have to disconnect a clip in the engine compartment on your speedometer cable. On a lot of high mileage cars that have had, several owners, that clip's usually broken and it's not an issue. But on these low mileage original cars, the clip is always still there. So you have to unclip it and it gives you slack in order to pull that cable through so you can get behind the gauge cluster. And you also need to have a 10 millimeter wrench, open end wrench, to undo the analog or mechanical fuel pressure oil pressure line. First thing we'll do is I always start over here on the right side, and we disconnect basically your tachometer, your clock, the glow plug light, the seat belt light, and then we reach behind and we undo the speedometer cable. And on top right here, we can undo the cruise control. I guess it's the sensor that allows the cruise control to activate. Then once we have all that done, we flip it the other way and we do the oil line and then the main power harness. I know you guys can't see that, but I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And that is an extremely nice, never been out of the car, untampered with original cluster. Look how bright all the original orange paint is. It's not faded. This has never had any sun damage. It's really amazing. But sure enough, our clock is not working and our dimmer switch is broken. And guys, I see that on just about every car. The capacitors on the clock, they just get, with age, they just stop working. And the dimmer switches, those are just notorious for, this is a 40-year-old dimmer switch. So it served its purpose for many decades, but they just fail. So let's go ahead and get this on the bench and replace it. Okay, guys, on the bench, we have our gauge cluster. These are our new capacitors for the clock. These are 100 microfarads at 50 volts. The volts is not really important. It's the microfarad value that's important. We have our soldering iron, and that's going to allow us to take apart the gauge cluster. Okay, we also have our new dimmer switch from Mercedes. Let's see, 000-542-362564. I don't think you need the 64 at the end. And here is our replacement video dimmer switch. So let's go ahead. First, I want to start with, we'll go ahead and do the dimmer switch, but then we'll do the clock. And that just simply, the dimmer switch just simply comes out of there. And I'll show you why these fail. There we go. All right, there's like some corrosion that kind of started right there. There we go. See that spring? That is the spring. Yeah, we can't even turn this one. There you go. That's the spring that causes resistance. It's the potentiometer. See how that one's all messed up? That's what happens to them. Here's our new one. See the spring right there? See how smooth it rides on that spring? This is our good one. So let's go ahead and put this in there. It's very simple. You want to line it up with the adjustment knob on the other side. There we go. And it just presses back on there. And then we can see, there we go. All right, so that's good. Let's go ahead and work on our clock. All right, the clock is over here. Here, I'll angle it towards the camera. That's probably a little better. Here's the clock, and we just have a couple of screws we need to take out. All right, set those aside. And then our clock simply comes out of here. There we go. Now, we'll move our gauge cluster up here. And we're going to work on our clock right here. Okay, guys, there's the problem right there. See these two capacitors? There's one there and one there. Those simply go out of spec. They fail. They don't fail, but they're out of spec. So they don't allow the electricity to charge into them and discharge at the right rates, and it causes the clock to fail. So first thing we want to do, I've got gloves on so I don't get my greasy hands on here. We're just going to pull off our face, our needles, and I got a special tool I use. See, it's around the shaft right here, and this is like a microchip puller out of a little computer repair kit. And you just grip around the bottom of it, and you can pull it straight off. Next thing we want to do, let's see, I take these off around the face. There we go. There we go. Because we're going to need to lift up the face. Okay, we don't need to detach that one. We just want to be able to lift it up enough to slide this piece out of here. And I'll show you what we're going to do. Actually, I'm going to put one of these on the face back in just to hold it in place while we unscrew the screws on the back. Okay, on the back, here's our clock screws right down here. 1, 2, 3. And these right here are our RPM screws. 1, 2, 3. That's our tachometer. So we're undoing all of these. And then we can lift the tachometer up just a little bit and slide out our clock. We're going to take these out. Now we also, there's the ground right there. See if you guys can see that. This right here, there you go. That is the ground, and that's soldered in. That's the ground for the clock. So we have to break that, basically get that solder hot, flow it so we can release that ground connection. Now we just need to break the solder loose right here, and then we can just push on the little clock power connection and push this circuit board out of there. Now you can see the tachometer is loose, but what that allows us to do is lift up on everything. Oh, let me take this. I'll take this screw back out, but that allows us to lift up everything, get enough clearance to pull out the clock circuit board. And we want to go ahead and tin the tip. There we go. All right, we tilt that up. Now I'm going to put one hand right here on the power plug, and then we're going to melt the solder. There we go. See how it just popped loose? Okay, so now what we have, now I want to take that screw out that I put back in for the faceplate, or for the gauge face. We'll take that out, and then we can lift up and pull out the clock assembly. And there we go. We'll just set all that back down. We'll just set this aside. All right, guys, here's the clock assembly. Now on the back, we have our little foam protective pad. I guess that insulates it from vibration against the assembly that it goes in. So we're just going to peel that guy off. There we go. There's the ground that we broke loose right there. Okay, there's the ground that we melted and broke loose right there. All right, we'll just put our little foam piece back over there. So the capacitors. All right, these two little capacitors. First thing you see, there is a positive leg and a negative leg. And on the back of this circuit board, you can see they have, see, there's negative. They mark where the negative leg has to go. So that's important when we put the new ones back in. So let's go ahead and get these capacitors out of here. Sometimes you can do it pretty easily by kind of putting the screwdriver there and just pulling on it. Let's see. Put some more solder on here. There we go. Come on, melt. There we go. Got that leg out. There we go. Oh, a little bit more. Okay, there's one capacitor. Let's get the other one out here. All right, there we go. Now, our replacement capacitors. Let's get these open. Okay, again, these are 100 microfarad, 50 volts. The voltage is not important. Microfarads is 100 microfarad. And you can see here, there's a negative leg. It says right there on the capacitor. Negative. And then this is the positive leg. Positive leg is the longer one. So, we want to make sure we put the negative leg back where it says on the circuit board. All right, I'm going to kind of get it right there. I'm going to press just a little bit as I reheat that solder, and it should pop right through there. There we go. Okay, I've confirmed the negative leg is in the right place. And here's our other one. Negative is that side over there. There we go. All right, and we have the negative leg on the negative leg. There we go, guys. There is our fresh capacitors. Now we want to clip off the legs and put a little bead of solder there. That's all it takes. You don't have to put much, guys. That's in there. Let's go ahead and get this other side. Come on. That one's wanting to wiggle around. There we go. All right. Those capacitors are soldered in there. Let's go ahead and clip off the excess leg. How did these become magnetic? All right. There we go. Negative, 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 negative. That is correct. All right, now we just want to reassemble this. Okay. Then we lift up our face. Slide our clock back through. Now, we need to get, okay, there's little plastic locating legs that orient where it needs to be installed. Okay, there we go. I got those lined up. Now, I need to melt the solder on our ground so I can push it through. This is the tricky part right here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put one screw back into the RPM gauge to hold it in place. All right, now we got to melt our ground and get that back through there. And there we go. That is tricky, you guys. Just got to take your time. It takes patience. Okay. Now, let's put back in one of our retaining screws here just to hold it in place. Now these screw into plastic, so don't force them or you'll break it. All right, let's get our face lined up. Now it's important when you put the hands back on, you put them both exactly at 12 o'clock. Yeah, if you don't put them at 12 o'clock, they will never line up again. It'll be out of alignment. Got this janky old screwdriver I've been using for years. I could probably get a better screwdriver for this. Now let's put our hands back on here. And again, I'm going to put them both at 12 o'clock. There we go. It's so delicate. And this one just snaps right on the top. I just want this one to be exactly at 12 o'clock. There we go. Right on the money. Perfect. That is a restored clock. We can go ahead and reinstall this in our gauge cluster. Okay, now we just need to reinstall it. And that is easy enough. Oh, check to make sure our adjustment wheel is lined up. Yes, good. And it's as easy as that, guys. It's not that it's difficult. It's not a difficult job. It's just very tedious, and you got to take your time. Don't force anything, and just pay attention to what you're doing. Now, if you've never soldered, I recommend practicing on something first. All right. This gauge cluster is ready to go back in the car. Now we need to insert this piece. So there is, on some cars you could have a temperature gauge right here, but on every 123 I've seen, there is just a dummy card that just a grayed out card that was installed in here from the factory, and they just slip it right in there like that, and it just covers that area. There we go, like so. All right, let's go get this beautiful gauge cluster back in the car. Okay guys, I have the gauge cluster just loosely back in place. I haven't pushed it all the way in, but before I push it in, I want to test out our potentiometer or dimmer switch that was installed and make sure the lights light up here on the console. So I'm going to turn out the light on the camera. Okay, it takes a minute for my phone to adjust. All right, let's see. I'm going to adjust the potentiometer. Dark, bright. My phone is not picking this up very well, but you can see I'm dimming and brightening the console. And if we also look right here, it now correctly, you can see the buttons lit up here on the dash. Again, my phone does not pick this up well, and you can see right down here, yeah, it just doesn't pick up too well, guys, but I think you get the idea. Everything is correctly dimming and brightening now. All right, let me turn the lights back on. So the phone barely picks up the light when when the lights are out. The phone doesn't work very well to record, but you could see it was correctly dimming. So now we just want to push back in our gauge cluster, and you just do that by hand. There we go. That is now back in the dash. Perfect. And now we want to go reattach the cable under the hood, the speedometer cable, and we're done with that job. Oh, and the clock is working too. I'll see if I can record that for you real quick. Okay, we're going to go ahead and set the clock to 2:38 because that's what time it is. 2:35, 36, 37, 38. I need to wipe off my fingerprints here. But This car will get detailed later, but right now we show 2:38, and I'll come back in a few minutes and show you that the clock is working. Okay, with the magic of video editing, here we are about 10 minutes later. We can see the clock is perfectly functional. Mission accomplished. Okay, here is our shifter, and you can see the bushing has deteriorated and come out, and that's common. You see this on just about every 300D. This is a common item that has to be replaced. So we want to take off our clip on the end here and press in a new shifter bushing. It's going to be kind of hard for you guys to see. There we go. We got that shifter bushing pressed in there. Let's see if I can show you. See, I put a little white lithium grease around it to make sure it was easier to press in there. And there you go. So we got to put our, I know my arm is probably blocking you guys from seeing. All right, we have our shifter arm back through there. And then we just have to get our clip over the end. Okay guys, there we have our clip back over the shifter bushing, and see that will no longer rattle around there. It is firm. Now we want to go do the one on the front. Okay, I'm zoomed in and you can see there's our clip. Right up here we got to get off, and then we're actually going to remove the arm on this one and take it out of the car. There we go. Almost got it. There we go. Got the clip off. Got it. Okay, there is our arm. See, we just slipped it straight off, and the shifter bushing goes in this top hole here. So let's go ahead and press that in there. There we go. These things are hard to press in there. Cool. That one is in there good and not going anywhere. So let's get this back in the car. Okay, as you can see guys, we have the new shifter bushing in there with our clip back on and our 10mm nut down here. So that is all back together, fresh shifter bushings. Let me show you why we do that. Okay guys, here we are back in the car. Here's why we changed the shifter bushings. So look how tight this is now. See how it clicks into each gear. It doesn't wobble around. Now we can move it, but see, it's not flopping around. So when those shifter bushings are rotten, this thing flops around. It won't, you know, you'll think you're in drive, but you got to pull it down a little bit more. But now see how stiff this is? That's why you change your shifter bushings. All right, let's go ahead and service the differential. I have no idea what the fluid looks like or when it was last changed. First, we want to make sure we can get off the fill plug. Sometimes these things are kind of tough. There we go. All right, our fill plug is loose. Let's get our drain plug. There we go. God, actually that looks really, really good. That looks the same as that's been recently changed. Super clean. Oh well, we're putting some fresh stuff in there. Yeah, that's clearly that was being serviced. That was the same as the transmission fluid. That stuff is brand new in there. All right, well, Oh well, we'll put some new in there anyway. And guys, to fill this up, you just use good old 80 W90 gear oil. Nothing special going on here. I don't use synthetics or anything. Just a good brand like Napa 80 W90 gear oil. And it's going to take us a while to get this filled up, but all right, guys, there we go. See it running out of the fill hole. That is full. And there we go. Diff is fully serviced. Okay, I went ahead and removed this is the windshield wiper fluid reservoir, windshield washer fluid reservoir. So I went ahead and removed it and cleaned it out. These often have just, like old stagnant black water in them. So I cleaned that out real good, washed it out with Pine Sol, scrubbed it. I used Spray 9, that's a degreaser. Got that all over it, so it looks much better now. I mean, that's just the normal aging color, but that's all clean. So now I want to go get some fluid to fill that back up with. But also I want to remove this old original alarm system. This thing actually went off a minute ago. When I plugged back in the battery, this thing actually started going off, and I was like, what the hell is that? And so I just disconnected it. So it is still working. That's the crazy part. But the dealerships would often install these for people. And you can see there's a switch right here. So when you close the hood, and then if somebody opens the hood, it kind of sounds like boop, boop. That's what this thing sounds like. It was crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all this crap and just put it back to the factory original setup. Okay, the magic of video editing. You can see there's 3 little holes left over where the switch was. Here's all the alarm system, but that's where that switch was that detected when the hood opened. And then of course there's the loudspeaker, and I'm sure that was some sort of amplifier device. I don't know what that was. But I've got it removed. And here's this wiring that was left over. So that actually just runs up to a fuse and right into the firewall grommet. So I'm going to drop the underdash kick panel area and make sure that's all disconnected properly. And then we'll have that old aftermarket alarm out of here. And keep in mind, this vehicle hasn't been detailed. Scott's going to detail and clean up all in here, but I just wanted to get that stuff out of here. And guys, I actually have some of the, there it is, the anthracite gray touch-up paint on my shelf there. So I'm just going to fill these 3 little holes and then dab them with some touch-up paint so they'll be less visible there, and we'll make that look nice. Okay, I just went ahead and plugged those holes up with a little bit of, there's a piece of tape behind them, and I put a little JB Weld in those holes. And then here's some original anthracite gray, and I'll just do a little dab. Once that dries, a little dab on each one, and it'll make those holes less visible from that original alarm system, but we'll show that in the next video. All right, so that's it for this video. We'll see you in the next video, or so little left to do on this car. It's going to go to Scott, I think, Thursday. I'm going to drop it off at Scott's shop for detailing. And then after detailing, we'll do the walk around video and test drive. I think there's going to be one more video in between the detailing and this one. So stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Take care.